So our guest today is Dr. Amy Albright, Doctor of Acupuncture and Chinese Medicine. Dr. Amy Albright runs a successful coaching and advising practice filled with top performing change makers and business leaders from all over the world. She uses conventional and unconventional methods to strengthen her clients' emotional resilience, physical performance, and to powerfully foster their professional and personal development. Dr. Amy works exclusively with leaders who have the genuine desire to evolve themselves and who are making a positive difference in the world. Dr. Amy's first experiences of biohacking began 17 years ago when she used rare equipment to induce altered states, thereby creating profound healing and insights for her patients. Over the years, she has utilized a wide variety of other technology meets healing, quote unquote, methods and devices. She more recently worked full-time as an executive for a company called Bulletproof. Some of you may have heard of that, spearheading the creation of Bulletproof Labs, now called Upgrade Labs, a first of its kind $2 million biohacking facility in Santa Monica, California. And I've visited that lab, actually. That's pretty cool. Dr. Amy lives at the crossroads of modern technology and ancient wisdom, and creating a new paradigm for leadership and evolution. And I'm so excited to be interviewing Amy. We've worked together a little bit on our coaching program, and it's so great to have you, not in our studio, but from your home studio. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. It's exciting to be here, be a part of this conversation.
Yes, this is really exciting. Hey, before we dive into our topic today, which is really, your experience with biohacking, I wanted to know about in your bio, you talked about using rare equipment to induce altered states. Can we start there?
Yeah, sure.
What was that about?
17 years ago, I graduated as an acupuncturist and herbalist. That's what I have my doctorate in. And at that time, I was introduced almost simultaneously when I first started in that month of practice to a piece of equipment. And you lie down on a bed, and there were it was a light and sound kind of combination, and the light would be structured, they called it, through crystal applications. So there's these giant crystals hanging down over the body, light shining through it. It sounds super esoteric and crazy weird. When I first saw it, I kind of took a step back and went, okay, what is this? But that curiosity in me took over, and I stuck with it. And what I saw and what I was able to experience with that was really incredible for myself. Being able to just lie down, and instead of struggling to drop into meditation, between the sound and the light and whatever it was, the special mojo of that table, that piece of equipment, just dropping into a really deep state of meditation. Sometimes, often to the point where you're not even aware that you're there anymore. You're so far in another altered state that you're not thinking, oh, I'm laying here. A lot of times when we're meditating, we're thinking, oh, I'm sitting, oh, I'm aware of this topic floating through. It would literally be in an absence of thought. And then sometimes you come back around too and have quick rapid successions of insights, or like watching vignettes of movies. So when I started to experience that, I knew it was really profound. And then I started to, have other people get on it, and people that had done less meditation, people that were totally new to personal development, people that had never experienced any kind of healing before. And when I had an accountant say to me after he came back from one of these sessions, he's lying down, it looks like nothing's happening for 30 minutes. Maybe he's taking a nap. He wakes up and he says to me, I was soaring on the back of an eagle. And it was so powerful, I could feel it through every aspect of my being. And then the eagle turned back over.
Soaring on
the... Yeah. So the eagle turned and looked back over its shoulder and said to me, and the eagle had said something really profound, that was exactly what he needed to hear in order to transform and come into peace and more clarity about who he was and what he's needing to be doing in his life. So this is a guy, and I don't mean to stereotype, he's an accountant, right? He lives inside of spreadsheets and numbers, and everything lines up and everything makes sense. And he's never done anything like this before. And he's basically explaining what maybe some people would liken to an ayahuasca experience. and there's been zero substance. And
Right. That's what I'm
lie
thinking.
down and hear
Yeah.
sound and experience light and go into a hypnagogic state, deep meditative state, probably a theta state based on, the theta brain waves. And,
Right.
so I was sold. It's like, this is some really profound stuff, because
Hmm.
at that point, what I knew was the biggest thing that gets in people's way isn't necessarily their body or the restrictions of their genetics. And it's not even their past. It's not their story. It's what they believe about themselves. And it's about the perspective
Hmm.
that they have. So being able to up level his awareness like that, and my awareness and everyone else that I saw, that was exposed to that piece of equipment, it was really massive. It created a really huge change for me after having been in, natural medicine for quite a while and helping people to develop themselves for a
Hmm.
while. So it was
What
fantastic.
was the who created that equipment, and where is it? Is it still around? Do you have one? Or
There were 7 units of it made. This is often how biohacking equipment, the story of it. Almost all of the inventors of biohacking equipment are super brilliant scientists who
Mhm.
make, 1 to 10 or maybe at the most 50 units ever, a
Uh-huh.
50 being an outlier. And then they just sort of disappear. I don't think that the genius that goes behind the invention doesn't necessarily get met with the business sense to be able to know how to market
Yeah.
and popularize, and then also reduce the cost, because there's a huge amount of cost usually associated with biohacking equipment to purchase it at that scale. So, there's a
Yeah.
$15,000 piece of equipment at that time. Not everybody would be able
Uh-huh.
to have access to that for
Yeah.
home, whatever. Yeah.
I'm thinking I need to get one because I want to soar on the back of an eagle, or at least have an eagle speak to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just one of many. People would burst into tears of joy, be relieved of decades of suffering physically,
Yeah.
emotionally, and have massive breakthroughs. So,
Yeah.
just it does, it unlocks, and there are other ways to get there. But yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
for
I
sure.
think I should invent another one. It's on my to-do list someday to create
I
another
think,
piece of equipment like that.
and put me on your customer list. I think I need one of them. So, when you're talking about that, I'm thinking of float tanks and kinds of things. It sounds kind of similar to that sort of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, one of the things, you mentioned the Bulletproof Labs, now called Upgrade Labs. One of the pieces of equipment that I was exposed to in the development there was something that Dave Asprey was so keen on, and he still really is. And he calls it the Waterless float tank, and it's actually somewhat similar to the piece of equipment that I just described. So it's not exactly the same equipment, but there is something analogous to it available in Santa Monica and in Beverly Hills at the Upgrade Labs. And actually, I think they only have it at the Santa Monica location, but
Mm-hmm.
you lie down and it spins you, your whole body inside of a chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a light and sound component. And basically it induces you into a theta state within about 90 seconds. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so the sensory deprivation tanks, they're hoping that you get there via more of a meditative dropping in process, but it
Uh-huh.
doesn't actually push your body in that direction.
Hmm.
And that's one of the distinguishing factors with biohacking, is that, we really use some science and technology to push the biology and push that state of consciousness into a certain
Mm-hmm.
direction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this piece of equipment actually works, instead of on sensory deprivation like those float tanks would, this one
Yeah.
works on sensory overload. And
Oh,
so
wow.
and it's not, it sounds horrible, it sounds miserable. It's a
Mm.
little bit of a, I don't know, multi-sensory Disney ride or something, like a Frog and
Uh-huh.
Toad's Wild Ride for a second there. And then basically you just let go, and
Mm-hmm.
you get into a really expansive state very quickly. And people do have quite a lot of revelations, sometimes visions, and just a lot of their emotional stuff drops off.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned very, very fundamentally in my training as an acupuncturist, but also my own healing journey, because I was actually challenged with a huge amount of health problems from basically birth,
Uh-huh.
is it's all about the mind. It's all about the emotional space. If we heal the mind and the emotions, the body's going to follow. So I
Mm-hmm.
really feel like technology that addresses and any kind of application, whether it's coaching or personal development, we're really
Mm-hmm.
getting at the root of what's going on with the body. and creating that foundation for healing, sometimes spontaneous body healing even.
As you're talking, what's coming up for me is sort of this, idea that that we, traditionally you have to kind of prepare yourself for these adventures, or prepare yourself for whatever the external adventures or internal adventures for expanding our consciousness. I'm thinking about, meditative practices, and then the traditional sort of teacher or mentor or guide, and mentee or master student relationship. That kind of, I'm your teacher, you're my teacher, and you take me slowly up the mountain.
Yeah.
You've got to sweep the floor for 6 months, and then I teach you to sit, and then you meditate and experience this.
Right.
And with biohacking and with all this technology, it seems like we're leapfrogging this. And I just wonder about that. Now, no judgment. I'm reflecting on this sort of new era in kind of almost instantaneous meditation, or like Drew's doing in the Dr. Drew Pearson and with 40 Years of Zen.
Right.
And I know that you have a lot of experience with that, and how we're leapfrogging now, and just really advancing our development. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you said, no judgment on what's come before. I think our predecessors basically were trying to break down the mind and get access. And they didn't have necessarily the same technology we do now, of course, right? We're in the boom of technology in the last 100 years. So, and in the last 10 years even. So they were doing it through, sit and maybe I'll teach you something someday.
Yeah.
That our world is moving now, and the way that I'm designed as a human, I don't have the patience for that. And I don't think a lot of us do, like sit and maybe I'll teach you something 15 years from now.
Right.
It doesn't really work for me. And I think that there are a lot of people that are more impatient and wanting results. It's not that they're not willing to put in effort or spend time, but they want a bigger yield. And why not have a bigger yield? We now get a bigger yield. We have more power in our iPhone than we did in an Apple IIe. So why would we, why would we be kind of strapped back to an older technology and older possibilities?
Yeah.
So, for me, the style, I do coaching and advising. I do teaching in group, and that is basically with everything that I do, it's my fundamental belief that we can get there faster. And I really stay poised on the edge of creating a miracle at every moment. Like if I'm looking for miracles and I'm creating miracles, and then I'm noticing miracles, and I'm in that kind of a mindset. That's another way to get in, another way to describe peak performance. Versus, we can coast through life. We can kind of just do what our parents told us we should do, or, do what everybody else is doing, and aim for mediocrity, or maybe slightly better than we did. If we remove that uppermost barrier, then we can really pop into a different state with almost no technology, honestly, because all of it ultimately is run from within. But the technology can definitely help.
I love what you said, paraphrasing it, create miracles or be aware of miracles in every moment, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
What did you just said?
Yeah, well, the way that I used to say it is that, hey, look, I'm just doing my thing, and I'm creating a trail of miracles in my wake. And every once in a while, I like to look back and notice what I've been up to.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of attitude, I call it badassery. Like, I'm not here to just do a little bit. I'm not here to just kind of make a slight difference. I'm here to radically change someone's life. And I know that, if I can do that with the right people at the right time, it makes massive changes in the world. I started off working, so 17 years ago, just to tell a little to that story that you'd mentioned, wanted to hear about. 17 years ago, I graduated with that acupuncture license, and I got into private practice, and I realized that I had an opportunity. Yes, I could put in needles, and yes, I can do herbal medicine and actually make a huge difference for someone with that medicine. And I totally love and believe in that medicine. But if I could just really truly see someone and understand who they are and what it is they need to hear, and relay that to them as quickly as possible, as clearly and clearly as possible, I could set their life off on a whole different trajectory, which includes the physical and emotional healing that maybe they knew they were coming for. But maybe it just actually transcends that. Because most people don't dare to dream. They don't have a big enough frame or a context for what's possible in general, much less for themselves. So
Yeah.
I adopted the, creating miracles attitude back then. And I've been
Uh-huh.
practicing it and honing it ever since. And what I've learned is that if I can do that for people who are in positions of power and authority, let's say they run a large corporation or they're spearheading massive environmental changes. So these people that I work with from all over the world, I want to work with those that are strategically going to help create the biggest impact.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So when you first started getting into, kind of want to bring you back to biohacking,
Yeah.
and when you first started getting into the biohacking domain, it was through your expanding consciousness, as I gather, right?
Yeah,
Through
through that device, it blew my mind, right? And it really, yeah, it blew out the water of what we can do. Yeah.
yeah, and then you went. Did you shortly thereafter go to work with Bulletproof and Dave?
No. Yeah, it was actually, that was about 13 years later, 14 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the meantime, I used a lot of other sound and light healing technologies in my practice, in addition
Mhm.
to acupuncture, you know, different ways of accessing the body. I feel, like there's the tapping methods, like emotional
Yeah.
freedom technique,
Yeah.
using all kinds of different methods as
Okay.
needed. When people would come in, color puncture, which is the colored application of light to acupuncture points on the body,
Hmm.
acutonics, so
Okay.
using sound vibration on acupuncture points and around the body. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, and then and so within the first few years of my practice, I kind of shifted out of a lot of those body-based treatments though, and got more into the coaching and advising, and
Hmm.
eventually ended up specializing in business. So the story of how that all came to be, me working at Bulletproof, was I was coaching Dave Asprey as one of my clients and
Okay.
his senior team. And we were doing really great work and making a big difference in the business. So
Hmm.
he brought me in as a full-time employee as the vice president of culture for
Uh-huh.
Bulletproof.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of people know him for the buttered coffee or
Right.
for biohacking. He's he's a genius in the field. I really do feel like I think he's grandfathered the entire field, that what we would currently call biohacking, as far as
Hmm.
using this most modern equipment. I think the
Hmm.
roots though go back, much further, but he's really
Yeah.
brought together the field. So I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity to work with him and for him.
Yeah. So I want to read you this one quote I was telling you before we got on here. This is from the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's internal classic of medicine from the 2nd century BC, for all of our acupuncturists, and to recalibrate your memory
Right.
back to acupuncture.
Yeah.
It says the sages did not treat those who were already ill, but treated those who were not yet ill. They did not try to put in order what was already in disorder, but tried to prevent disorder from arising in the first place. Treating disease after it has arisen is like starting to dig a well when one is already thirsty, or only starting to cast weapons once the battle has begun. Would these also not be too late? So, I mean, it's sort of the roots of biohacking. I'm reflecting back to Chinese medicine and this idea of yang shen and nourishing life and all these different areas of nutrition, obviously qigong and meditation and
Right.
mindful practices.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, qigong and
yeah,
tai
that's why I sort of wanted to
chi,
go ahead.
connecting those dots, right? So the origins of biohacking, if we look at it, it's science and technology making a difference on body, mood, behavior, just really elevating that person. So yeah, I mean, back in 2000, 3,000 years ago, the technology was qigong, right? They didn't have light and
Right.
sound technology yet. But if you do qigong and tai chi, you can significantly change how your body and your brain are behaving. And if we were to
Yeah.
measure somebody with an EEG, we would see before and after effects of probably
Right.
just one session and certainly cumulative sessions.
Hmm.
But as far as science, a lot of people are not that informed, or only have a general sense of what goes into the science of acupuncture and herbal medicine. But I
Right.
know that you and I both know it's a massive amount of science. It is not petri dish cellular science. but there is a structure and form. It sounds kind of poetic. Sometimes, we talk about the elements, but the truth of it is that, it's a very complex system. And it is really, when I look at why did I went through all of that training, and then I ended up going such a different way with my practice. It ended up not dropping that out, but just getting so much broader. But I feel like that going through that training helped me to understand how those science and the technology and the systems work. And we know how to apply and then optimize those systems. And yes, we can, in a pulse, we can detect a whisper of a pathology before the patient or the client could ever even know that they have it. And that is a beautiful place to make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's absolutely, it is early biohacking. We also have moxibustion, the application of heat to specific areas of the body that do very, powerful things. And I think that's just another technology that we used at that time. We didn't have, nootropics, and we didn't have what we call stacking now, and we didn't have all these capsules to swallow, but people were finding all of those supplements and augmenting how even their cognition was happening. The acupuncture medicine doesn't leave out by any means how the brain is functioning and how the emotional well-being is. And it doesn't just work towards pathology. We talk about brightening the mind and lifting up the chi to the brain and all of that, the energy, so that we have that clarity of thought. And really, those are maybe early conversations about peak performance. So I love those roots, and I'm grateful for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always so curious about, about those origins. So what sort of technology, are you using any technology right now? I know that we had lunch some months ago after you had just gotten back from 40 years of Zen.
Right.
So I know that you're a big proponent of the work that Dr. Drew's doing. Have you been back since then, or
Not
are you?
40 years of Zen program, and just as a context, 40 years of Zen is another one of Dave Asprey's companies. Dr. Drew Pearson and I actually worked together in San Diego in private practice. I did a lot of neurofeedback with him and for myself, and that's been a massive implementation of biohacking and a huge part of my evolution and my process, my growth. And then we used it mutually on various clients. So yeah, so now they're that intensive. I haven't done it again since February. I do want to do it again this fall, but we'll see. It's just a matter of getting up there. It's based in the Seattle area. But on a day-to-day basis, I have neurofeedback that I actually do at home. I'm blessed to know how to use the technology, at least in a basic way. I do that pretty regularly. And then there are different technologies, and definitely there's stuff that I do every day that I'm happy to share with everybody here to, talk about just easy things to do at home that everybody can apply.
Go for it. So what can our listeners do? What would be a good departure point? Because not everybody can afford time or the money to go up to 40 years of Zen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nor buy a $5,000 piece of light and sound equipment with binaural beats and
Right.
So I actually asked Drew this question too. I asked him what would he recommend, but what would you recommend?
Yeah, it might be some of the same things, because Drew and I have been sharing notes. We've been deep in this together for about 7 years.
Okay.
So, or 8 years now. Yeah. So I think that one of the most powerful things that we could do is actually it is a light and sound device, binaural beats based. And it's actually pretty recently new to the market. It's called Mind Alive. And I don't know the inventor myself yet. I plan on making an introduction, but what we've seen is, it looks like a pair of glasses that you put on, and it's your smartphone. And basically you power everything up, you put in your headphones, and you're listening to binaural beats, which have a really powerful effect on the brain. And then the pattern of the blinking lights can drop you into different states, brainwave states. So you can do alpha, you can do alpha theta, you can do delta. There's certain ones that they have them program names. So it's very simple to use. You don't have to understand necessarily a bunch about what you want. It could be, they'll call it like quick meditation or refresh, right? Afternoon refresh. There's one that's called invigorate. So somebody very new to all of this, you don't have to be a cognitive sciences, neurology geek to be able to buy this unit. And I think it runs roughly $250.
Well, that's pretty reasonable.
It's super reasonable. I love how, again, with everything, technology gets cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
This thing doesn't have wires. It works Bluetooth through your phone, and you can slip it into a bag and have it with you anywhere. I take it with me when I travel, and I use it on the airplane.
Oh, that's a great tip. Yeah. I saw one recently. A friend of mine had one that it was Deepak Chopra's one, and you actually plugged in the glasses. I tried it. A lot of different, programs. It was pretty cool. But it was like, I think it was like $500 or something like that.
Right. There's a lot that's out there for, there's a different unit that uses transcranial DC, which is a light electrical current, and it can help to stimulate the brain. It's used a lot of times for depression, but also just to kind of up-level the thinking and get into a frame of mind and a stronger perspective. But that runs about $550, and it does have, it's got more wires, and it's kind of a system that you have to, carry around. So this one's really like simple and sweet. I think that there are a lot of really great products out there, and it could sound really, unbelievable what it is that it does. But, for myself and for other people, if you're struggling, if you feel a little bit bogged down, you're not really sure how to have a breakthrough, maybe you're not sleeping well, this little unit, it can make a huge difference. So the one thing to know is that it's not for everybody, because blinking lights can cause seizures with certain people. So I'm not necessarily, by the way, I'm not prescribing any of these things at all, but I do just want to tell you, these are what I do and what I've, had other people be helped by. So people should check, make sure it's appropriate for them. Not for kids either. Kids can only do certain programs on those kinds of light and sound devices. And that would have to be prescriptive again. I don't even know the criteria for it.
Yeah, I think, there's that. I'm glad you said that. We give a disclaimer at the beginning of this show anyway, that we're not making any medical recommendations here. But I know that people with depressive or anxiety disorders or mood disorders have to be really careful with even just guided imagery. And it could just be a soundtrack that takes people on guided imagery they have to be careful with. So people should always consult their healthcare providers before embarking on these kinds of things. But I appreciate, again, this is for our conversation here.
Totally. We're just having fun sharing and comparing. Yeah. So another one that I really truly love is the Aura Ring. It's spelled O-R-A, the Aura Ring. I sleep with mine every night. I totally geek out on the data that it gives me. I used to go to sleep every night and just kind of wonder what happened. And I'd wake up either tired or refreshed or whatever, but not necessarily understand, how much REM did I have? How much deep sleep did I have? Did I wake up? And so there's been a treasure trove of information with the Aura Ring that I've myself. And then the ability to modify, I had a lot of wake ups last night and I took a bath last night and probably raised my core body temperature up too high. And that's going to cause more wake ups at night. So the Aura Ring it's just a wireless, it looks like a men's wedding band kind of thing. I only wear mine at night because I don't prefer the look of it for myself during the daytime, but you can use it for exercise tracking too. And I love it because it has really low, like EMF or Bluetooth. I really feel like the amount of electrical stimulation and interference that we have is a very important topic, and EMFs are a really important topic. So with this ring, you can turn it off and then sync the Bluetooth back on so that you're literally just wearing an inert device, but it's recording all of that.
Oh, interesting.
The transmission happens when you link it to your smartphone in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, Drew, that was one of the things Drew told me when I was interviewing him on this podcast. He said, I asked him, I said, what's one of the best things people can do for sleep? Because we're talking about this. And he said, turn off your Wi-Fi at night.
Yes.
Turn it off completely in the house.
Flip the switch. Yeah.
Flip the switch off. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's whole home EMF harmonization. When I did that, I noticed a dramatic difference in my sleep.
What is that? What is whole home EMF harmonization?
Yeah, there's Emf Solutions has a product. A friend of mine runs a business, and you clamp a product onto your smart meter. And the smart meter is the one place in the house that then connects to all the pipes, all the metal. So, and we do with electricity electricity is easily conducted and or harmonized through metal.
Uh-huh.
So you can actually just really it doesn't reduce the amount of EMFs, but it brings it into a more harmonious flow. And,
Interesting.
as we know, it's not necessarily that energy is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Energy is a natural part of life. And we get solar, energy and all that kind of things into our body all the time, but it's really
Right.
about how harmonious is it, how natural. So that's the function of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just a device you install and then you forget about it. It's just there, but it's made a huge difference. I used to have a ton of, the other piece was I used to have a ton of spiders, black widow spiders, all in my backyard.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to use chemical sprays, but I resorted to chemical sprays, still couldn't get rid of the black widows.
Hmm.
And he said that I had a really high level of EMF contamination in my home based on his meters that he was measuring.
Mm-hmm.
When I got the Emf Solution device put on my smart meter, what happened was all the black widows went away. And
Weird.
I canceled my pest spray company because I didn't want that to begin with.
So
But
they were attracted to the vibration or the EMFs.
yeah, somehow they were. That's my understanding. I'm the only person that I know that's maybe put that together. So I don't have a scientific data basis, but seems to me really interesting. Like ants and things like that sometimes are on geothermal lines, or
Right.
so I think some of these insects are kind of tuned into or drawn to certain kind of electromagnetic fields or phenomenon. And I just didn't want. I mean, black widows out of all the spiders, not really what I want around my home
Yeah.
for my
Although
family.
they don't really want to have anything to do with us. Most people are freaked
Um,
out about they have
yeah, exactly.
arachnophobia.
Yeah.
I just think one day ants are going to lift my house up and just move it down the block just to mess with me. But actually, I haven't seen the ants that for some reason this summer. I think my neighbor's spraying chemicals all over. Anyway, so what other kinds of tools have you done? So let's talk about genetic testing a little bit, and as a way of insight. What do you first of all? What do you think about genetic testing?
I think it's amazing.
Okay.
We can test not genetics, but also gut biome. And
Yeah.
I think that that's an amazing tool.
Hmm.
Sometimes somebody is having, it could be an emotional or a mental performance issue, and that
Hmm.
gut brain, it's a sameness. It's not just connection. It's
Yeah.
really, it's almost the same. It's the same system. So being able to know what's going on with that, or maybe they're having digestive or other problems, autoimmune problems. So
Yeah.
gut health everywhere, we're reading it, it's up. And to be able to test for specific, what is somebody low on? Because sometimes
Hmm.
there's just none of certain strains present in someone's gut. And
Yeah.
then repopulating that specifically can be just really massive.
Yeah. I was reading. Did you read this book? Um, did you read this book, Peak? You see that?
No.
This is okay. I'm going to recommend that to you. You'll like this a lot. It's pretty dense. Peak Health, Nutrition, Recovery Mindset by Dr. Mark Bubbs. The new science of athletic performance that is revolutionizing sports. It's not just about sports. I mean, he's pretty keyed into athletes, obviously, by the title, but he talks a lot about the gut biome and how, we're so limited in our culture, in our Western cultures, and a lot of it's just we're not in contact with soil. We're not in contact with and it can be replenished easily, but then when you go back into your normal habitat, which is mostly indoors or separated from nature,
Right.
that it goes back to the limited levels of the microbia that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But
It's massive.
what sort of supplements are you using, or do you recommend them to people or to your clients?
Sometimes I do. I don't get into too many of the details of that. I usually refer out and let somebody
Okay.
else manage that portion of care, because it can
Yeah.
be a real wormhole for time and focus.
Yeah.
People that I'm working with. Right now I'm on almost nothing. Sometimes I do more. I've found some really great gut flora. I really like microbiome labs for
Mhm.
their flora that they have. Uh, their probiotics. And then also they have a mucosa lining and a prebiotic. And I
Okay.
think that combo is really powerful. I've seen some great results with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I recommend that people get under the care of either an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a functional medicine practitioner, a naturopath. If you really want to make a difference,
Yeah.
it takes being very comprehensive, very targeted at the same time, but taking a comprehensive picture and understanding really where to go
Mm-hmm.
and getting on course. I feel like that there's too much that gets left out of the medical model. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that, the medical model definitely has a huge amount to offer, and I always recommend doing that in tandem.
Yeah.
But taking a step back and recognizing that if we just treat with medication and band-aid things, that we're going to end up, never really handling those root causes, and those root causes can snowball. And
Yeah.
I saw that in my own health. I was on antibiotics from 2 weeks old, and I had, a horrible time with, basically it was autoimmune. Allergies are
Mm-hmm.
autoimmune. Not many people understand that. So
Mm-hmm.
I had allergies and digestive problems and skin problems and,
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of stress as a kid. I had a really tough home environment. And I think that, getting people off of that circuit of just creating more medications
Mm-hmm.
and going the medical route is key, and getting people to not necessarily just self-prescribe,
Mm-hmm.
in the hands of somebody that's really good. Don't just go to, the health food store and hope that you can kind of patch yourself together. Be an
Yeah.
informed consumer, yes. And then I think be in the hands of somebody that really knows what they're up to.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you reading right now? Or what's of interest to you? What are you listening to? Do you have time to read, or do you listen to audiobooks, or how are you charging up your intellect these days?
Yeah. I do it a lot through my work. The
Okay.
people that I work with are massive change makers in the world. And
Okay.
so I learn a lot just by interacting with them, and
Okay.
and by what I'm helping them with. As I'm rolling this stuff out, it's dropping out of my mouth because I'm plugged into that flow state, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just coming through me, and I'm going, yep, that's good. Yep. So I'm not that I'm including myself into the work as I'm doing it, but I'm very clear that the information just kind of rolls through me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those funny people. I haven't watched TV in at least over a decade, maybe more.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very, very careful with what I put in, because just
Mm-hmm.
like junk food, there's junk food in the mind. So I'll occasionally listen to a podcast, but nothing on the regular. Right now on my bedside table, I probably have 10 different books. I might pick up and
Mm-hmm.
read a chapter here or there. I'm someone that I take
Yeah.
a very small amount of information from a lot of different sources, and then I combine it in a new way. So I don't want to dive in
Mm-hmm.
too deep. I don't like to get too deep into details. I rarely read a book cover to cover, to be
Oh,
honest.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you're like me. I've got like 15 different books open at any one time
Uh-huh.
in my office, in my house, or my, wherever my books are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it could be on anything. I mean, right now, one of my books is on parenting. I've got a middle school son, and
yeah.
there's just a lot of changes that are happening at this age. So I've got a book
Yeah.
called How to Listen or How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And
Yeah.
it's been a huge book for me. Unrelated again to the field of biohacking, but just the schools
Yeah.
and coming into peak performance.
We should do it. We should do our next podcast on parenting, because I have 4 in various age groups, and you've got your guy
Yeah.
middle school. It's really that's one of the hardest jobs of my life, and
Oh,
most beautiful. Yeah.
absolutely. So rewarding. And, I think that it deserves a huge amount of respect, that we give ourselves for what we put in every day, but
Yeah.
also just respect for the importance of the job and how much are we focusing on it, because
Yeah.
we're sculpting out how these humans are going to think and perform and be in their
Mhm.
lives with our everyday behavior,
Yeah.
conversation at breakfast, or how we pick them up from school, or how
Absolutely.
present we are. So just
Yeah.
like with everything, looking to be at that absolute top of what we can accomplish, and
Hmm.
at the same time love ourselves for our imperfections, because we're not going to be able to do it to the standard that we want all of the time.
Right.
The sweet spot, how do we get in there, and how do we stay in that? How do we lean in and work that edge
Mm-hmm.
and be constantly growing? Just that
Yeah.
by itself, I think, is a great role model for our kids.
Yeah. There was a great book that was written years ago called The Tao of Parenting. Did you read that book? Do you have that book?
Oh, I read the
No.
Dao of Poo, but not the Dao of
Oh, the
Parenting.
Tao of Poo. Yeah. You read the Tao of Poo here at the school.
I did, yeah, years ago. Great book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, when you talked a bit about, your early years and coming in and being challenged health wise, and how you managed, through your education and through your practices to overcome that. What about how do you face adversity now? And maybe you don't have that much now, because what I get from you is you pretty much navigate a flow state and miracles pretty effectively.
Yeah.
But we all have adversity. Things come up, even for the best of us. So how do you tell us about like a challenge or something like that, and how you navigate that?
Yeah. Well, I did. I had a lot of adversity, a lot of tough stuff that I had to get through as a kid and even as a young adult. And sometimes the baggage of that still lays around. So, it's about working it down and really getting after it. For me, the thing that I think that is kind of brings me the most strength and most resilience is my just really freaking deep passion and dedication to my own freedom and
Oh.
the freedom of others.
Mm.
I got really clear, it was well over a decade ago, that I'm here to radically change the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might sound, overly ambitious to some, but it's absolutely what I'm up to and what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think that all of us actually have a really big calling, and
Mm.
we all have a contribution. We all have a reason for being here. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I just dive into my reason for being here all the time, and I just
Mm-hmm.
really determined to get myself free. So if I'm challenged with adversity, one of the first things I do is just remember that I'm creating my own reality. It's a belief that
Mm-hmm.
I have that, hey, if I'm experiencing it, there's got to be a reason for it, and there's got to be
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm doing or a belief that I'm believing subconsciously that's creating that. So what
Mm.
is that? And I reverse engineer and troubleshoot it, and I figure out what it is. Is it
Okay.
programming from when I was a kid? Is it just limited structures of beliefs that I'm still kind of, habitually? We're so complex and we're so beautiful and diverse and multidimensional. We can't
Mm.
possibly understand everything that's running our program. So
Mm-hmm.
at once, right? But if I can see, oh wait, I'm having a challenge with, you know, um, getting through this next career hurdle, or I'm nervous about showing up for this, or I have a little bit of a maybe not a conflict, but a disconnect with the person in my life.
Mm-hmm.
How do I approach that from a place where I am not the victim? Because I am
Mm-hmm.
fiercely determined and clear that I am not a victim, and
Mm-hmm.
also that they're not wrong. How do we pop
Mm-hmm.
out of the right and wrong paradigm? I
Mm-hmm.
think those are the traps that we can get stuck in
Mm-hmm.
very, very easily. And I just don't allow myself to go into that for more than a half a second. Sometimes I end up there, just like
Mm-hmm.
every other human. But how quickly can I pop out, and how determined am I to make progress and to bring things not just to a slight sense of resolution or a slight sense of relief, but all the way through to the finish line. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what sets peak performance apart and has allowed me to make the progress that I have, so that
Mm-hmm.
I do stay in a flow state, so that I am really strong almost all the time. I don't get offline hardly at all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But just, as a word of encouragement for other people, I used to spend a lot of time offline. In fact, I didn't even know what it was like to be online, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
on my game,
Mm-hmm.
until I was in my mid 20s. So it's been a journey, and that's really what I seek to show other people, how to get through and cut years off of that process, get to it
Yeah.
very, very quickly, whether it's with biohacking technology or just the techniques and the strategies that I've developed in my coaching and advising.
Mm-hmm. So when you're working with your clients, well, obviously you're going to have them, do some biohacking modes and methods, like maybe the
The lights and sound device, the Mind
the
Alive.
mind alive, and
Mm-hmm.
what about journaling? Do you journal?
I do, yeah. I like to journal. I like to doodle in my journal. There's all kinds of things that happen in my journal.
Uh-huh.
It's a rich playground in there. I also like to have my clients use HRV, so the heart math,
Uh-huh.
the device that again clips into your uh, smartphone,
Yep.
and I think you have to have an iPhone for it, but maybe they have an Android now. But there's a little clip that goes onto the ear, and it measures the heart rate in a really complex way, and you can tell when you're tracking. And if you want to get yourself what I call back online,
Yeah.
plug yourself into some HRV heart math training for about 10 or 15 minutes, and you'll be in a different state for sure. And
Interesting.
sometimes that's all you need is, we don't necessarily have to know how to get ourselves, scraped up off the pavement if we're having a hard day or if we're in a constant state of fatigue and stress into that peak performance. Sometimes we just need to create a shift. And then from that shift, we can start to problem solve again. Just kind of depends on how shut down we are, how locked into the illusion we are. So looking for that shift, it could just be good old fashioned exercise, go outside. I love gardening. I don't have a super fancy yard or garden, but when I'm out there playing in the dirt, I definitely feel better.
Yeah.
Whether that's EMF neutralization, whether that's the microbiome, like you said, being populated by that exposure to dirt. But it can be very basic. Go for a swim in the salt water. I think salt water cures just about everything.
Yeah.
It's
That's my temple.
low tech. Yeah, I know you're a surfer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's massive.
That's definitely my temple.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about dunking the head under the water. That's the key. Most people, if they go to the beach and if you're going to get in the water, dunk your head, because that's where it really takes over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the other day, and I know you live in North County of San Diego too, a couple of weeks ago, I went down to the beach near Cardiff, and it was a Sunday. It was packed, right?
Yeah.
Packed. Beach was packed. Water was packed. I looked on the sign near the lifeguard station and said shark sighting.
Oh.
So it usually doesn't freak me out, but I was like, I'm just going to be a little bit more cautious today.
Right. Yeah, there's a little bit of living on the edge. I think we have to be willing to be alive, take risks.
Yeah. Yeah, there is some perspective in that for sure. So you talked a bit about exercise. We know exercise is a huge component of biohacking, right? Yeah. So what do you do personally for exercise, and what do you recommend to your clients, or do you tailor? I'm sure you tailor it individually for people, right?
Yeah, I really do. What works for one does not work for the other. For myself, I like to hike. I love being outside in nature a ton. I don't love to walk in a neighborhood so much as I want to be out on a trail. I feel like I just get about 100 times more out of it, even though it takes a little bit more effort to do it. It's not that it's worth it. So that's one of my outlets. I do love running, but I don't do it a ton. And then I love aerial. I don't know if you're familiar with the aerial fitness or aerial silks kind of thing. So I do some
silks, sure.
acrobatics and climbing. And I feel like that helps to keep me really strong physically, but also really strong mentally, because you're literally suspended above air on, pieces of fabric, and you have to pay attention. And I love the game of utilizing my mind to be that strong and that clear, and you also have to be really dedicated, because it is hard. And, physically it takes a lot of power, but also it takes a lot of coordination. So it's very humbling, and I love that. But I love it that the strength of my mind and the strength of my body all put together. And I don't have any room to waver in that. I have to be really focused, or it's dangerous, to do what I'm doing. So, and I love that. I love working that edge. For me, if I don't have enough edge like that, then it can be a little boring.
You like to live a little bit on the edge.
What's that?
You like to live a little bit on the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's part of the peak performance. So if you want to get into flow state does not work unless you're working an edge.
Yeah.
You don't want to be out beyond it where you're shutting your body down in panic, or you're overloading yourself with too much new information.
Yeah.
But that flow state where we feel in that natural high, and then that rhythm of life comes from working an edge. So yeah, absolutely. And I also just love mat yoga, like some good vinyasa.
Okay.
Yoga is awesome, and I've been practicing that for a really long time. And I found, if I do yoga once a week, it makes a huge difference. If I do it 3 times a week, I'm a different person. So the combination of all these different things.
Yeah.
Really huge.
Yeah. I know you to be a very warm and loving person. Is that by nature or through design? Did you come in? So some people come into the world, they're very open-hearted and loving and warm. Other people
Yeah.
uh, don't necessarily have that, but they work and achieve it. Other people never even recognize that they're devoid of it and don't even care.
Right.
And
Right.
you know what I'm talking about. So how did, or were you the one that, were you the type that came in warm and loving and open,
Yeah.
heart-centered, or can you talk about gratitude and that
Yeah.
heart space and that
Yeah.
area of
Yeah.
biohacking?
Yeah, definitely. I think that one of the most important biohacking things that we can do is to be a positive person and to focus on gratitude. And there's all kinds of brain science that's backing that up now.
Yeah,
But I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Do you feel better? Does it
yeah,
work?
right.
So testing it for ourselves and noticing that it works.
Hmm.
So even though, yeah, I had what I felt like was a lot of adversity as a kid, a lot of challenges. I was always definitely a warm and super loving kid, extremely emotionally sensitive,
Hmm.
very high emotional intelligence,
Hmm.
um, to the point where, starting at like one or so, people were noticing there was something really different about me, and even the
Hmm.
presence that I had as a baby. So
Hmm.
definitely it started as an innate thing.
Hmm.
I think that with the trials and tribulations that I kind of walked through,
Yeah,
there were parts of me that got a little bit shut down or definitely restricted. Not necessarily that I wasn't still really warm and loving, but I didn't know how to fully express it. So one of
yeah.
the most beautiful things that I've experienced is my ability to connect and be really comfortable inside of myself, and
Hmm.
then to be able to connect and be comfortable connecting with other people and just loving on everyone.
Hmm.
My work, I definitely, I work with a lot of top performers. I work with people that have huge stakes. They're
Hmm.
used to pushing really hard and going really hard.
Yeah.
And I kind of do a combination of kick their butt and love on them all at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's a sweet spot, because there's never, the way that I am in that is that I don't have any judgment and there's no malice. And they're so clear that I'm aligned really deeply for their freedom,
Hmm.
and for their success. And it means a huge amount to me. So I put so much heart into my work and into
Hmm.
my life and into all of my connections that, if anything, I've had to work the balance the other way and make sure
Uh,
I'm putting myself in there into the equation. So that was the personal development piece, was to be able to be less selfless, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Sort of shore up the boundaries a bit,
Yeah,
and or at least define them a little bit to not be overly ebullient, I guess, right?
right.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about towards the end of our hour here, and I just want to thank you so much for being here and sharing with us and with the listeners, and you have so much to offer everybody, and I hope that I know our listeners will enjoy this, and I really want to thank you for sharing with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. And
Yeah.
I do want to just give a gift too. If anybody would like to visit my website, it's Dr. Amy Albright, with one L for Albright, dramyalbright.com. And I'm offering what I call Expand. And it is a very powerful audio track. So talking about working in some biohacking and some coaching tools that I've
Yeah.
used. So I've been using this kind of technique for, I don't know, close to a couple of decades now. And I have seen some really huge miracles. So analogous to flying on the back of an eagle and getting insight. I've had people come back from these guided imagery type meditations that I conduct with massive transformation and insight. And
Wonderful.
it makes a huge difference. So I want to be able to offer that. So yeah, people can visit dramyalbright.com and have a free download of that.
That's fantastic. And we'll link to that in the podcast too for our listeners too. So you don't have to remember it. But
Great,
thank you so
great.
much. That's very generous, Amy.
Yeah, happy
And
to.
I hope I see you down around the college here at some point soon.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's been fun. The development of, just to talk about what our recent project for a half
yeah,
second before we sign off, is the development of that master's in health and human performance degree. It's been a really fun project, and I'm very excited for all the emergence of the field of health and human performance, kind of again along the lines of biohacking and bringing health and health sciences to another level. So it's been a blast developing that program together, and I'm excited
Absolutely.
to see it soar.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful working with you and our other consultants on that project. And it's been for sure labor of love. And we're super excited to roll out the first cohort here in less than a few weeks. So,
Amazing.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you soon. And thank you so much. Yeah, also, you'll be speaking at the symposium coming up in the fall. I forgot to mention that on this topic of biohacking and its emergence in our healthcare domain. So that's going to be really exciting for our listeners here in San Diego, or those who are going to be joining us at the symposium. We'll get a chance to see you live and hopefully meet you.
Yeah, it'll be a very structured talk, a few hours long for the acupuncturist and herbalist that can get there.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You as well.
Talk to you soon. Okay.